You found that the racial makeup of a school can have a profound effect. How so?
It really can, because it gives children opportunities for having contact with other kids and potentially making friends. And we find that it really makes a big difference for kids in thinking about who they're going to play with and who they're going to be friends with.
So, I mean, if you're a white parent whose child goes to a majority white school, this study gives you a lot to worry about. What do you say to a parent who's concerned?
Well, we hope it gives them a lot to think about and thinking about how they're exposing their children to people of different races and ethnicities. And you can think about the level of community. So maybe your school isn't diverse, but the larger district you live in is more diverse. And maybe there's an opportunity to have your children encounter other kids. Or if not that, then to use other kinds of media, whether it's books or televisions. But to think about the whole issue of exposing your other children from different racial backgrounds.
Soledad, for you, what was one of the big takeaways of this?
I think it's pretty fascinating how kids as young as 6, and we think of 6 as pretty young kid, are very articulate and really understand the nuance of differences in race. I mean, they were really talking very specifically about what they thought either their parents may or may not like. And I was surprised at kind of the high-level conversation. You look over and the kid is 6 years old. But I do think what it sends as a message to parents is, if you're in a majority white school, you know, that's it. That's the school you're in. But there are many other opportunities to reach out and have your kid just meet other kids. And if you're not doing that, then you're really limiting your kids' opportunities in a lot of ways.
And I mean, you found that young African-American kids are a lot more optimistic than white kids.
Yeah, what was really interesting about the study was that the young African-American kids are just much more positive about the potential for friendship. When they're looking at a picture card of a white child and a black child and you ask them, well, can these two be friends? They're much more likely to say, in fact, the majority of them would say, yeah, they can be friends. Whereas we found a different finding for the white kids, were much less likely to say that they could be friends. So it really makes you think about why is that and what goes into that.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with children's exposure and contact, and also the messages they get from all over. I mean, you're going to get messages from the broader community and the media and that have a lot of stereotypes and negative stereotypes often. And it's really parents' job to, in a way, challenge that for children and to sort of counter it. And doing it through all those sort of daily interactions, the conversations you have with children about who you're going to play with, who you're going to stand with and know at the bus stop. And so it's the everyday interactions that are really important.
I think it's a matter of a minority, a black child who's in a white school is going to have to be friends with people who look different than they do. A white child in a white school doesn't necessarily have to get to know kids who are different than themselves. And I think a lot of it is just in the effort extended to understand and get to know people.
And I think what Soledad said earlier is so fundamental and important, that these kids talk about it early. I mean, at 6 years of age, they're talking about race.
And are aware of it so
And they're
early.
aware of it.
Because, I mean, I think a lot of parents you talk to will say, well, my child is colorblind, or I want my child to be colorblind, or I'm colorblind. And yet what we're seeing in this is that kids are forming impressions about race very early on.
I have never heard a child ever in my whole life say colorblind. I've only heard parents describing how their children are use the word colorblind. I think that's really, really true. I think parents in some ways are more blind to what's happening than their